The Galactic Museum showed relics from an old empire. The human recognized her father's crest. HFY the Galactic Museum had always been a place of wonder. Towering spires of glass and steel reached into the sky, reflecting the colors of distant stars. Inside, halls stretched endlessly, each filled with relics and artifacts from civilizations long gone. Aliens of every shape and size wandered through, their eyes wide with awe, but none of them seemed to notice the small human standing near the entrance. Alara Hayes adjusted the strap of her bag and walked slowly into the museum. Her heart raced with anticipation. She had traveled for weeks to reach this place. The museum was unveiling a new wing dedicated to the old empire, a civilization that had vanished from the galaxy centuries ago. Most species knew it only through fragments of history, crumbling star maps, scattered weapons, and stories passed down through generations. Humans, still considered a young species in the interstellar community, had few ties to these ancient histories. Alara often felt like an observer in a world much older than her kind. She moved carefully past the other visitors, her eyes scanning every display. Each artifact told a story, but most were written in alien languages she could barely recognize. The first thing that caught her attention was a ceremonial banner hanging from the ceiling. It was enormous, made of a shimmering material that seemed to ripple like water. Strange symbols were stitched across it, each one precise and symmetrical. Alara stepped closer, squinting at the design. Her stomach tightened and she froze in place. It was the crest. Her breath caught. The symbol on the banner was identical to the one her father had worn on an old flight jacket, a jacket she remembered seeing only in pictures. She had always thought it was a family emblem, nothing more. But here it was, displayed in the heart of a museum, labeled as belonging to an unknown auxiliary force of a civilization that had supposedly vanished without a trace. Alara reached out, her fingers trembling, though she didn't touch the fabric. The museum had strict rules against handling the relics, but even if she had wanted to, nothing could have prepared her for the flood of memories the sight of the crest brought back. Her father had disappeared decades ago during a mysterious mission that no one ever fully explained. The banner seemed to whisper secrets she wasn't ready to hear. "Miss Hayes," a voice said behind her. She turned to see a young curator, his skin a deep shade of violet and his eyes glowing faintly in the dim light. "Are you interested in the old Empire exhibit?" "Yes," she replied, trying to keep her voice steady. I recognize this symbol." The curator raised an eyebrow, curious. "Recognize? You mean the crest?" Alara nodded. It's exactly like one my father had. I didn't know anyone else ever used it." The curator frowned. "Interesting. That symbol appears in several records, but no one has been able to translate its meaning. We've always assumed it belonged to a minor auxiliary force, but nothing else is known." Alara felt a chill run down her spine. She remembered her father's stories, told in fragments and half-smiles. He had always said, "Some stories survive only if someone remembers them." Could this be one of those stories? Could the old empire's banners and relics be hiding a truth her father had lived? She wandered deeper into the hall, passing displays of ancient weapons, star maps, and strange devices whose functions were long forgotten. Each artifact was carefully labeled, but the descriptions were vague. The old empire had been efficient, organized, and mysterious. It had disappeared almost entirely, leaving only relics for historians and archaeologists to puzzle over. Alara stopped in front of a display case containing a small, metallic device. It was roughly the size of a human hand, with intricate engravings covering its surface. The device hummed faintly, though there was no obvious power source. She leaned closer, studying the patterns. Somewhere in the back of her mind, a memory stirred, a memory of her father working in his workshop, tinkering with tools and machines no one else could understand. He was part of something big, she whispered to herself, something important. The curator reappeared beside her. Many visitors wonder about the old empire's technology, he said. They were advanced, but their methods were largely lost. Most of what we have are ceremonial or symbolic items. This device, for example, was likely a communication tool or an emblem of rank. Alara's fingers itched to touch it, but she knew better. Instead, she pressed her palm against the glass, as if reaching through time to her father. Rank, she murmured. Maybe that's what the crest meant. A soft alarm sounded, drawing her attention to a nearby hollow screen. The museum's automated system had detected an anomaly. A hidden file, labeled as restricted, had been triggered by her presence. The screen flickered and displayed a message in a language she didn't recognize. The symbols moved in patterns, almost like a code trying to communicate. Her heart pounded. The curator looked at her, puzzled. That shouldn't have happened. The restricted files only activate under special conditions. Alara swallowed hard. Maybe it recognized me, she said, her voice barely audible. The curator blinked. Recognized you? How? She didn't answer. She couldn't. The message on the screen was speaking to her in a way she didn't fully understand, yet somehow, deep down, she knew what it meant. Her father had been part of this story. The old empire had not been entirely alien, not entirely separate from humanity. Somehow, humans had been involved, quietly shaping events, leaving no trace except for the crest. Her mind raced with questions. Why had her father's symbol survived here, in a galaxy full of civilizations that didn't even know humans existed? What had he done, and why had it been erased from history? The curator moved closer. Miss Hayes, are you certain this is personal? She nodded slowly. Yes. This belongs to my father. Somehow he was part of the old empire. I think he helped shape it. The curator's eyes widened. That's a serious claim. No human has ever been recorded as part of the old empire. If what you're saying is true, he hesitated. We may need to look at restricted archives. Alara's stomach twisted with excitement and fear. This was bigger than anything she had imagined. The museum, the old empire, the banner, the device, all of it connected to a story no one had told. A story her father had been a part of. She took a deep breath and walked past the displays, toward the museum's inner archives. The corridors narrowed, the lights dimmed, and the air seemed heavier here. The ancient walls whispered of secrets too old for most species to comprehend. Her mind flashed back to the last time she had seen her father. She had been a child, clinging to his hand as he prepared for a mission that had seemed routine, but he had never returned. She had grown up with questions that had no answers, and now, decades later, she was finally seeing a piece of the truth. Alara paused before a sealed door marked Restricted Archives, Authorized Personnel Only. Her heart beat rapidly. Beyond this door lay records, maps, and files that had been hidden for centuries. She knew that stepping inside could change everything she thought she knew about humanity's place in the galaxy. The curator tapped the access panel. I can unlock it for you, but you must promise to be careful. Some of this information has consequences we don't fully understand. Alara nodded, determination lighting her eyes. I want to know the truth, about the old empire, about my father, about us. The door hissed open, revealing a room filled with holographic displays, ancient star charts, and rows of digital files stored in glowing crystalline servers. The air smelled faintly of ozone and metal. Every object seemed to hum with history, with stories waiting to be told. Alara stepped inside, feeling the weight of centuries pressing down on her. She knew that whatever she discovered here would change her life, and perhaps the galaxy, forever. As she moved deeper into the archives, she glanced back once at the ceremonial banner hanging in the main hall. The crest gleamed faintly in the light, no longer just a symbol of the past. It was a key, a message. A connection between her father, humanity, and the forgotten empire. Her journey had begun, and for the first time in decades, Alara felt a spark of hope. Somewhere among these relics, she would find the answers she had been searching for. And when she did, the galaxy would never see humanity the same way again. The restricted archives were unlike any place Alara had ever entered. Holographic star maps floated in midair, shifting and spinning slowly as if alive. Crystalline servers glowed softly, holding data that had not been touched for centuries. Every surface hummed faintly, a quiet song of history waiting to be remembered. Alara moved carefully between the rows of artifacts. Her eyes were drawn to a pedestal at the center of the room. On it rested a small metallic tablet polished to a mirror-like finish. Symbols covered the surface, similar to the crest she had seen on the banner. She reached out, her fingers hovering above the tablet, but did not touch it. Something in her gut told her this object had more than ordinary importance. "Be careful," the curator warned. His violet eyes glowed softly in the dim light. Many of these items were never meant to be handled without guidance. They carry knowledge, but they can also confuse or mislead those who are unprepared. Alara nodded. "I've waited my whole life for this. I need to understand." The curator sighed but did not stop her. "Very well, but remember, history is often written by those who survive. Some truths are hidden for a reason." She studied the symbols. They were intricate, flowing, and elegant, but their meaning was unclear. Most species had tried to decode them over the centuries, yet no translation had ever succeeded. The tablet seemed alive in her hands, resonating in a way she could feel but not explain. Her mind wandered to her father. She remembered the stories he had whispered late at night about distant worlds and impossible missions. He had always been secretive, but there had been moments, brief, shining moments, when he spoke with pride about being part of something greater than himself. Could this be it? Could the old empire be that something? The curator gestured to a nearby console. "Some files here are partially decrypted. You may find clues if you search carefully." Alara approached the console and tapped a few keys. The screen lit up with hundreds of files, their titles written in the same symbols as the tablet. She began opening one by one, her eyes scanning each line of code, each diagram, each map. Slowly, a picture began to form. The old empire had been a civilization of incredible intelligence and organization, but it had not been built for conquest, as most histories suggested. Instead, the records hinted at defense, stabilization, and protection. Entire star systems had been monitored and maintained, conflicts prevented before they could escalate, resources carefully managed to prevent starvation or collapse. Alara's heart raced. "They weren't conquerors," she whispered. "They were guardians." The console displayed a file labeled Auxiliary Command Human Design. Alara froze. Her fingers shook as she opened it. Inside, she found diagrams, mission logs, and even a few recordings. And then in one of the holographic logs, she saw a name, Marcus Hayes, her father. The log showed him moving through a command center, giving instructions, coordinating defenses, and interacting with alien officers. His voice was calm, firm, confident. It was a side of him she had never known, a part of history that no one had remembered, until now. "Why didn't anyone ever tell me?" she whispered. Her eyes filled with tears, but they were tears of wonder, not sorrow. Her father had been part of something incredible. He had shaped the course of the galaxy, and no one had known. The curator watched her silently. "Humans were not recorded as part of the old empire," he said. "The records were erased or hidden. Most species believe humans were a minor, late-coming civilization, but clearly that is not true." Alara nodded, her mind racing. "It was a secret mission," she said. "That's why he disappeared. That's why we were told nothing." She continued to explore the files. Every log, every map, every artifact added pieces to the puzzle. The old empire had been temporary, a framework for stability. Humans, or at least her father and a few others, had helped guide it, quietly influencing decisions, preventing disasters, and then disappearing without recognition. The more she learned, the more she realized humanity had been underestimated. Other species looked at humans as young and inexperienced, but the evidence in these archives proved otherwise. Humans had acted when others could not, thinking not of fame or glory, but of the greater good. Ilara paused at another file labeled Symbolic Emblems Command Protocol. She studied the crest again. According to the record, it was not just a decorative emblem. It was a sign of authority, a command symbol given to those who had responsibility over entire operations. Her father had not simply participated. He had led, made critical decisions, and carried the weight of life across star systems. A low hum filled the room, and the tablet on the central pedestal glowed faintly. Ilara stepped closer, realizing the symbols were changing, forming into patterns she could almost understand. It was as if the tablet was communicating with her. The curator glanced at it. That is very unusual. The device may respond to specific DNA sequences. It was designed to recognize the descendants of those who served in the old empire. Ilara's heart skipped a beat. "You mean, it recognizes me?" The curator nodded. "It appears so. That is a level of technology even most advanced civilizations cannot achieve. It is subtle but effective." Her mind raced with questions. How had humans, a species considered young and inexperienced, achieved something so sophisticated? How had her father been trained, and why had he chosen secrecy over recognition? She felt a surge of pride mixed with awe. Humanity had played a role no one knew about. They had been quiet, invisible architects of order in a galaxy that had assumed they were insignificant. Ilara studied the glowing tablet, feeling a strange warmth in her hands. She realized that the old empire had not failed. It had fulfilled its purpose, and then it had withdrawn deliberately, leaving behind relics and symbols for those capable of understanding. Her father had been part of that withdrawal, one of the few who had seen the full picture. "Do you understand now why your presence here matters?" the curator asked. Ilara nodded slowly. "It's more than just history," she said. "It's proof. Proof that humans have always mattered, even when no one saw us. My father, he was part of something greater than any one species. And now, it's my turn to understand it." The curator smiled faintly. "You are the first human in centuries to see this, Miss Hayes. Perhaps the galaxy is finally ready to remember humanity's role." Ilara turned back to the tablet, her eyes scanning the changing symbols. She felt a connection across time, a thread linking her to her father and the countless humans who had acted quietly for the good of all. The crest was no longer just an emblem. It was a symbol of responsibility, courage, and unseen heroism. Her thoughts wandered to the future. If the galaxy discovered what humans had done, how would they react? Would they respect humans as guardians and innovators? Or would they be shocked that a species they had underestimated had quietly shaped history? She didn't have the answers yet, but she knew one thing: she could no longer remain a mere observer. Her father had left a legacy, and it was up to her to follow it, to uncover the full story, and perhaps to reveal humanity's true place in the galaxy. The archives seemed to hum in agreement, as if acknowledging her resolve. Every symbol, every file, every hologram was a part of a story waiting to be completed, and Ilara was ready to finish it. She glanced at the curator. "What's the next step?" He hesitated, then gestured toward a deeper section of the archives. "There are files here that have never been opened by anyone outside the old empire itself. If you want the full picture, that's where you must go." Ilara took a deep breath. Her heart pounded with excitement and fear. She was stepping into history itself, a history in which humans had played a role far greater than anyone could imagine. The path ahead was uncertain, but for the first time, she felt ready. As she moved toward the deeper archives, the glowing tablet dimmed, leaving only the memory of her father's crest shining in her mind. It was a promise, a challenge, and a guide. Somewhere in the galaxy, the story of humanity was waiting to be remembered. And Alara was about to bring it back to light. Alara stepped deeper into the restricted archives, her footsteps echoing softly in the quiet, cavernous hall. The air smelled faintly of metal and old circuits, a strange mix that made her feel both uneasy and excited. Holographic projections floated above her head, showing star systems, fleets, and planets long forgotten. Each display seemed to pulse with history, waiting for someone to notice, to understand. This section, the curator said, his voice low, contains files that have never been opened by anyone outside the old empire itself. They were meant for those who understood the full scope of our operations. Alara's pulse quickened. "What kind of operations?" she asked, trying to keep her voice calm. The curator shook his head. "Defense, stabilization, and preparation. The old empire was not about conquest. It was about protecting the galaxy, preventing catastrophes before they could happen. Few species ever realized it, and even fewer knew who was behind it." Alara's mind raced. All the files she had seen earlier hinted at this, but now she understood more clearly. The old empire had not fallen because it was defeated. It had completed its purpose and then withdrawn. It had been a silent guardian, and humans had played a role. Her father had not been lost to the stars. He had been part of something larger, something no one was allowed to remember. She moved toward a terminal labeled Command Protocol Human Operatives. Her hands hovered over the interface. The terminal flickered and then came to life, projecting a holographic display of mission logs and star maps. She scanned the names of operatives, searching for familiar ones. And then she saw it, Marcus Hayes. Her breath caught. The name blinked on the screen like a star in the darkness. She tapped the hologram, and a series of logs played automatically. Her father's voice echoed through the chamber, calm and firm. "Prepare the fleet for orbital stabilization. Civilian evacuation protocols in Sector 12G are active. Repeat, Sector 12G evacuation is in effect. Maintain communication with allied systems." Tears stung her eyes. She had spent decades imagining what had happened to him, wondering if he had simply disappeared or if the galaxy had swallowed him whole. Now she realized that he had been working tirelessly to protect civilizations he barely knew, without recognition, without glory. "He was a leader," she whispered. "Not just an operative, he led entire operations." The curator stepped closer. "Humans were underestimated," he said quietly. "Your species is young but clearly capable of extraordinary planning, innovation, and courage. The old empire needed humans who could act decisively and think strategically. Your father, and others like him, were ideal." Alara felt a surge of pride and awe. Humans had quietly shaped galactic history, protecting millions of lives without claiming credit. She thought of her own species, reputation among aliens, often dismissed as inexperienced or untested. Yet here, in these archives, it was clear that humans had once acted as silent architects, guiding civilizations while remaining invisible. She tapped another file, labeled Withdrawal Protocol Completion of Mission. Holograms appeared, showing the slow dismantling of fleets, the deactivation of command centers, and the redistribution of resources across hundreds of star systems. The old empire had not been destroyed. It had completed its tasks and quietly faded away. Her father's role was evident in each record. He had overseen critical evacuations, coordinated intelligence gathering, and ensured that systems vulnerable to collapse were stabilized. The galaxy had assumed it had survived through luck or the efforts of other species, but the truth was clear. Humans had been the unseen guardians. Alara's mind raced with questions. How many other humans had served this way? How had they been trained, and why had their contributions been erased? She realized that the secrecy had not been accidental. Humans had chosen to remain unknown, allowing civilizations to develop without depending on them. Their power had been restraint, not ambition. A new hologram appeared, labeled Project Continuum, Observation and Oversight. It displayed a massive network of monitoring stations across dozens of star systems. Humans had designed algorithms and systems capable of predicting disasters, preventing conflicts, and ensuring the survival of countless species. The old empire had not needed domination. It had needed care, guidance, and intelligence, and humans had provided it. Alara felt a thrill mixed with disbelief. Her father had been part of a plan that spanned centuries, a plan that no one had remembered. Humans had left a mark on the galaxy, not through conquest, but through ingenuity, courage, and responsibility. The curator's voice broke her reverie. "Do you understand now why your presence here is significant?" Alara nodded slowly. "Yes," she said, "but it's more than history. This shows that humans are capable of so much more than anyone realizes. My father, he was a hero, not for glory, but for protecting others." The curator gestured toward a deeper section of the archives. "There are still records of his final missions, missions never completed. They may reveal the full extent of his contributions." Alara approached the next terminal. The files there were heavily encrypted, requiring both her presence and a special authorization sequence. She placed her hand on the biometric scanner, and it recognized her immediately. The system responded as if it had been waiting for her. The holograms shifted, revealing maps, fleet movements, and mission logs she had never seen before. Her father's final missions were unlike anything she had imagined. They involved coordinating entire star systems, negotiating with alien species, and preventing conflicts that could have destroyed planets. Each entry highlighted his intelligence, his calm under pressure, and his ability to make choices that saved lives. Alara felt both pride and sorrow. Pride because her father had been extraordinary. Sorrow because she had never known him and much of his story had been hidden even from her. But now, for the first time, she could see the full picture. "Humans," she said aloud, almost to herself, "have always mattered. We just needed to be ready to step forward." The curator smiled. "And now, it seems, you are ready." Alara explored the records further, piecing together the timeline of her father's actions. She realized that the old empire's withdrawal had been deliberate, designed to leave the galaxy stable and self-sufficient. Humans had acted as stewards, ensuring that civilizations could thrive without intervention. It was a story of quiet heroism, invisible to history books, but essential to survival. She paused at a holographic projection showing the final moments of the old empire. Fleets dissolved into hyperspace, monitoring stations powered down, and the symbol of the Crest, her father's crest, was recorded as the mark of command for the human operatives. The projection shimmered, emphasizing the significance of human participation. Alara reached out, touching the hologram. A faint warmth spread through her fingers, as if the projection itself acknowledged her presence. She felt a connection across time, linking her to her father and the countless humans who had served quietly, leaving no trace but their actions. "Why keep it hidden?" she asked the curator. "Why not tell anyone?" "Because," he said, "true guardianship is not about recognition." The old empire and humans within it acted because it was necessary, not for fame. Recognition would have changed the way civilizations developed. They needed to believe they were responsible for their own survival. That is the essence of stewardship. Alara nodded, understanding the weight of what she had discovered. Humans had acted wisely, with restraint and foresight. They had influenced the galaxy without arrogance or pride, leaving only subtle marks, crests, emblems, and the faint memory of order. She felt a new sense of purpose. Her father's story was no longer just his, it was humanity's story. And she was determined to see it fully revealed, to ensure that humans were remembered not as a young, untested species, but as capable, intelligent, and responsible guardians of the galaxy. The curator stepped back, letting her continue. "Take your time," he said. History has waited long enough for someone to understand it. Perhaps now, humanity's role can finally be recognized. Alara lingered in the archives, absorbing every detail, every record, every log. The weight of centuries pressed down on her, but it was a weight she welcomed. The galaxy had underestimated humans, but she now knew the truth. Humans had shaped history in ways no one else could, and the old empire had been a testament to their vision, intelligence, and courage. As she left the deeper archives, she glanced back at the holographic projection of her father's crest. It shimmered faintly, a reminder of the responsibilities humans had carried and the legacy they had left behind. Somewhere out there, across the stars, civilizations believed they were shaping their own destinies. But now Ilara knew the quiet truth. Humans had always been watching, guiding, and protecting, even when no one. Ilara moved further into the heart of the restricted archives, her steps quiet, careful, yet determined. The deeper she went, the heavier the air felt, filled with the weight of centuries of secrets. Holographic projections of distant star systems flickered around her, some showing whole planets, others focused on small outposts and fleets she knew her father had overseen. The quiet hum of the archives seemed almost alive, as if it was aware of her presence. She paused in front of a terminal labeled Final Records, Legacy of the Old Empire. Her fingers hovered above the interface. Something about this terminal felt different. The energy in the air was warmer here, almost comforting, as if the archives themselves were acknowledging her right to see what lay within. "This is it," she whispered to herself. "The final piece." The curator stepped beside her, his violet eyes reflecting the soft glow of the holographic displays. "Miss Hayes," he said quietly, "this section contains the ultimate message from the old empire, recorded for the human operatives and their descendants. Only those who carry the lineage of the original guardians can access it." Ilara nodded and placed her hand on the biometric scanner. The terminal hummed softly and unlocked. A holographic projection rose from the surface, and for the first time she saw her father, Marcus Hayes, standing in a room that looked like a command center of a fleet. He was calm, confident, and strong, yet there was warmth in his eyes that spoke of wisdom and care. "Greetings," the hologram began, and his voice echoed clearly through the chamber. "If you are seeing this, it means you have found the archives and are ready to understand what we once did. I am Marcus Hayes, and I served in the old empire as a guardian of the galaxy. My role and that of my fellow humans was to protect life, to prevent disasters, and to ensure that civilizations could thrive without interference from outside forces." Ilara's heart raced. Every word her father spoke felt like a bridge reaching across decades, connecting her directly to him. Tears welled in her eyes as she listened. "We were young," the projection continued, "but humans had qualities that were invaluable: courage, intelligence, foresight, and a willingness to act when others hesitated. We were given authority, symbols, and tools, not for glory but for responsibility. The crest you recognize is not just an emblem. It signifies trust, leadership, and the duty to act for the good of all." Ilara swallowed hard. He really was everything I imagined and more," she whispered. The hologram shifted, showing star systems in peril, fleets moving to prevent conflicts, and evacuation protocols in place. "We acted quietly," her father said. "Few knew our presence and even fewer understood the full scope of our actions. Recognition was never the goal. Stability and protection were. We intervened when necessary, and we withdrew when our work was done. The galaxy may have assumed we disappeared, but in truth, we simply allowed life to continue while remaining unseen." Ilara traced the glowing lines of the star maps with her fingers. Each line represented careful planning, strategy, and sacrifice. Her father's role, and humanity's, was far greater than any history book had ever acknowledged. "Why hide it?" she asked aloud, though her voice barely carried. "Because," the hologram replied, True guardianship is not about fame. Recognition changes the way civilizations grow. If every species knew that humans had shaped the galaxy, some might become dependent, others resentful. Our mission was to act with restraint, ensuring life could thrive independently. That is the essence of stewardship. The curator watched silently, understanding the depth of the revelation. "Miss Hayes," he said softly, "you are seeing what few have ever known. Your father and the humans who served were extraordinary. The galaxy owes its survival in many areas to them." Alara nodded, determination sparking in her eyes. "Then it's time to show the truth," she said. "The galaxy deserves to know what humans have done, not for power, but for life itself." Her father's hologram shifted again, showing detailed records of operations. Entire systems stabilized, wars prevented, natural disasters mitigated. Every record emphasized careful calculation and foresight. Humans had acted decisively, yet without seeking control or recognition. They had been invisible guardians, a quiet force guiding the galaxy towards survival. A new projection appeared, focusing on her father's final mission. "This was my last operation," he said. "After this, the old empire completed its purpose and withdrew." Humans returned to anonymity, leaving only the crest and the records for those capable of understanding. The galaxy may never fully know our names, but our actions endure. And now, it seems, the time has come for the story to be remembered. Alara felt a surge of pride and responsibility. Humanity had acted wisely, with restraint and vision. Her father had trusted that one day someone would continue the story, someone who could honor the sacrifices and decisions made in silence. That someone was her. She stepped back from the projection, letting it fade slowly. The room felt alive with history, yet peaceful. The weight of centuries of unseen heroism pressed on her shoulders, and she embraced it. She realized that this was not just about her father, it was about all of humanity. The curator spoke again. "The archives are open to you now, Miss Hayes. You may choose to continue exploring, or you may begin the process of revealing this to the galaxy. But know this, the story you carry is powerful. It will change perceptions of your species forever." Alara nodded. "I understand. This isn't about glory. It's about truth. It's about giving humanity the recognition it deserves, not for pride, but for honesty and understanding." She walked toward a section labeled Communication Archives, Message to the Galaxy. The files here were incomplete, designed to be assembled by a human who understood the history fully. As she studied the logs, she realized she could reconstruct the message her father had intended. A story of guardianship, intelligence, and restraint. A story that would show the galaxy that humans had always been capable of greatness, even if they had chosen to remain quiet. Hours passed as she worked, piecing together fragments of logs, holographic files, and mission reports. Each edition revealed more of the old empire's philosophy, a civilization that acted only when necessary, guided by intelligence, compassion, and foresight. Finally, she had reconstructed a complete record. It was more than a historical account. It was a message, not only of what humans had done, but of who they were. Guardians, thinkers, and innovators who chose action over recognition and responsibility over power. Alara paused, breathing deeply. She realized that she held the culmination of centuries of silent heroism in her hands. The galaxy had assumed humans were young and inexperienced, but now she had proof that humanity had once shaped the course of history and could still do so. The curator watched her quietly. "Do you intend to share this?" he asked. Alara nodded slowly. "Yes, it's time. The galaxy needs to understand what humans have done. Not to dominate or control, but to inspire, to show that intelligence, courage, and restraint can change history without leaving destruction in their wake." A soft hum filled the room as the holographic displays responded to her decision. The archives seemed to recognize her choice, acknowledging her as the bearer of a legacy. She felt a connection across time, linking her not only to her father but to the countless humans who had acted quietly, ensuring the survival of countless civilizations. Alara realized that this was the beginning of a new chapter, not just for her, but for all of humanity. The story of the old empire, the unseen guardians, and the humans who had shaped the galaxy would finally be told. As she left the deepest archives, she looked back at the holographic projection of her father's crest. It shimmered faintly, a symbol of leadership, wisdom, and responsibility. She touched it lightly, feeling the weight of history and the power of human ingenuity. The journey was far from over. Alara now carried the responsibility of revealing the truth, of showing the galaxy that humanity had always been capable of greatness, not through conquest, but through wisdom, restraint, and courage. For the first time, she felt the full weight of her father's legacy, and the promise that humanity could rise, not as conquerors, but as guardians of the stars. The Galactic Museum had never felt so alive. Though centuries of silence filled its halls, today the air seemed electric, as if the walls themselves anticipated change. Alara Hayes walked slowly through the main exhibition, her mind full of the knowledge she had uncovered. The old empire's relics were no longer just symbols of a forgotten civilization. They were evidence of humanity's quiet but powerful influence across the galaxy. She stopped before the ceremonial banner, the one that had first caught her eye months earlier. The crest shimmered faintly in the soft light, as if aware of her presence. Alara placed her hand near it and let herself remember the long journey that had brought her here. The whispers of her father's stories, the mysteries of the archives, and the revelations of humanity's hidden role as guardians of countless worlds. Her fingers hovered over the glowing crystal that activated the display. She had made her decision. It was time. The galaxy needed to know the truth, not to give humans power or dominance, but to share a history of courage, intelligence, and responsibility. The curator appeared beside her, his violet eyes reflecting the soft luminescence of the museum. "Are you certain, Miss Hayes?" he asked. "Once the story is revealed, it cannot be undone." Alara nodded. "I am certain. Humanity has acted in silence for too long. It is time for the galaxy to understand who we really are. Not conquerors, not outsiders, but protectors, innovators, guardians." The curator's hand hovered over a control panel. "Very well. The communication archives are ready. Your message can be broadcast to every system capable of receiving it." Alara took a deep breath. She activated the interface. Holographic screens floated around her, displaying star systems, fleets, and planetary governments. Her reconstructed message, combining her father's final words, the mission records, and humanity's philosophy, flowed through the network. Every species, every council, every listening post would see it. Her father's hologram appeared once again, his calm, confident voice echoing throughout the museum. "If you are seeing this," the projection said, "it means humanity is ready to step forward. Our actions were not for glory or domination. We acted because it was necessary, because life deserves protection, and because intelligence without responsibility is meaningless. We were young, but we chose wisdom over recognition. And now it is time for the galaxy to know the truth." Alara's eyes filled with tears, but she smiled. She had always wondered if anyone would understand her father's choices. Now the galaxy would know. The message emphasized restraint, foresight, and courage. It was not a declaration of power, but a lesson in responsibility. The story of a species that had acted decisively, quietly, and wisely. Holographic screens around the museum lit up with responses almost immediately. Aliens of countless shapes and sizes paused to watch, their expressions a mix of awe, surprise, and respect. Some species had assumed humans were inexperienced or insignificant. Now they saw the truth. Humans had been shaping events for centuries, influencing the survival of entire civilizations without leaving destruction behind. Alara watched as discussions erupted across the galaxy. Councils debated what this revelation meant. Scholars updated historical records. Histories once thought complete were rewritten. Humanity's reputation shifted instantly, from newcomers to silent architects of stability, a species capable of vision, foresight, and courage beyond measure. A holographic message arrived from a planetary council on Endara Prime. "We acknowledge the revelations regarding humanity," it said. "We are humbled by the responsibility and intelligence demonstrated. It is clear that humans have played a crucial role in the preservation and advancement of countless civilizations. We offer respect and gratitude." Alara smiled, her heart swelling with pride. For centuries, humans had acted in quiet service, guided by reason, intelligence, and compassion. Now, the galaxy finally saw the truth. The curator stood quietly beside her. "The story is being heard, Miss Hayes. You have given humanity a new place in the galaxy's history." She nodded. "Not just humanity. My father and everyone like him deserves recognition. But this isn't about glory. It's about showing that responsibility, wisdom, and courage matter more than power." As the broadcasts continued, Alara reflected on what she had learned. Humans had always been underestimated, considered young, impulsive, or inexperienced. Yet the archives had proven otherwise. Her father had coordinated evacuations, stabilized star systems, prevented conflicts, and guided civilizations, all without seeking acknowledgement. Humanity had acted with foresight, intelligence, and restraint, proving that the strength of a species was measured not by conquest, but by the ability to protect and sustain life. She walked through the museum halls, observing the relics of the old empire with new eyes. Each banner, device, and symbol was no longer just a piece of history. It was proof of humans' careful, deliberate, and wise influence across the galaxy. The artifacts hummed softly, as if acknowledging that the story was finally complete. Alara paused before a display of the fleets her father had once commanded. Holographic ships traced their paths through star systems, representing missions she had pieced together over months. She realized that the old empire had never truly died. Its purpose had been fulfilled, its guardians had withdrawn, and its lessons had endured quietly through time. Humanity had been part of that continuity, a species that acted when necessary, guided by intelligence and morality. A message from the archives, automated system flickered onto her console. "Alara Hayes, your actions have completed the restoration of historical records. The galaxy now recognizes humanity's role as guardians and innovators." She breathed deeply, letting the moment sink in. Centuries of anonymity, of unseen heroism had led to this moment. Humans were no longer just young explorers. They were respected, capable, and acknowledged as a species that could guide, protect, and inspire. Alara turned to the curator. "What now?" she asked. "Now," he said softly, "you watch the galaxy learn. You observe the first steps of a new era. Humans have been revealed and the story continues. The galaxy will never see your species the same way again." Alara smiled. She thought of her father, of the countless humans who had acted quietly and wisely. She felt a sense of fulfillment, knowing that their work, their restraint, and their vision had finally been recognized. It was more than she had ever hoped for. As she walked toward the museum's central hall, she noticed visitors gathering around the holographic projection of the Crest. Aliens, young and old, studied it with curiosity and respect. For the first time, humans were seen not as newcomers, but as vital contributors to the galaxy's history. Alara placed her hand near the crest one last time. The light shimmered softly, a reminder that responsibility, intelligence, and courage endure beyond centuries. She felt a connection across time and space, not only to her father but to all humans who had acted with wisdom and restraint. The galaxy had learned the truth. Humans had been guardians, innovators, and protectors. They had acted without recognition, but always with purpose. And now, humanity's story would inspire countless civilizations for generations to come. Alara turned and looked out at the stars through the museum's grand windows. Countless systems sparkled in the distance, each one a testament to the unseen guidance her father and others like him had provided. She knew that this was just the beginning. Humanity's role had been revealed, and now it was time to continue shaping the galaxy with wisdom, courage, and responsibility. For centuries, humans had been silent guardians. Now they were remembered, and the galaxy would never forget them again. Alara smiled, her heart full of pride and hope. The story was complete, yet it was also just beginning. Humanity had stepped forward, not as conquerors but as guardians. And in the quiet glow of the Galactic Museum, surrounded by relics and stars, Alara Hayes knew that her father's legacy, and her own, would endure forever.